There's absolutely no shame in that. Like you cannot know the things that you don't know.
As adults, it is kind of our responsibility to educate ourselves. And there's so much information. And I'm glad that we are able to be kind of an addition to the information available out there. When you know better, you can do better. This is Reah, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics, including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more. Our guest on today, her name is Taylor Adams. Appreciate you being here. And
of course. Thank you for having me.
I feel like we connected really well with our meeting.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
with it being a new year, the height of the beginning of a new year, I feel like it's really, really important to have you here right now because, you know, the things that you have to talk about are super helpful. It's the new year. It's, you know, whether you have resolutions or not, it's the perfect time to reset. You got the whole year ahead of you to do all the things that you wanted to do last year, you just didn't get to and whatnot. Finances is a really, really good topic for a brand new starting point. As we know, with our emotional and physical health, if your financial health is in a good spot, it's just, you know, kind of keeps those links going and for goal achievement. So I'm excited to have you here and talk about this topic. Give us kind of a little overview of who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Taylor Adams. I am a real estate investor and a content creator where I talk mostly about finances and helping mainly millennial and Gen Z women find financial freedom and build generational wealth using real estate investing. I feel really strongly that financial literacy is extremely important, and it really ties into all of those things that you just said. You know, if your financial health is poor, that's going to affect the other areas of your life. Finances are a very stressful thing. And so that weaves in very strongly to your physical and your mental health. So we want you to take care of your financial health so that you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I agree. One less thing, you know, when you have one thing in order, it makes other things easier to get in order too. Tell us how you kind of got to this point in your life where this is your focus and how you create wealth for yourself.
Yeah. So back in 2018, I started investing in real estate kind of by accident. My husband and I were working in the city of Boston, and we were looking to buy our first home. And, you know, it's a high cost of living area. Living close to the city was very expensive. It still is. And so we were trying to figure out what to do. And we were like, hey, you know what would be great is if we bought a multifamily, we'll live in one unit, we'll rent out the other unit or units, and have the tenant subsidize our mortgage so that we're paying less than we would be paying in rent. And so we did that, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. At the time, we didn't know that is a thing that people do. It's called house hacking. And we wanted to do more. We wanted to create more financial freedom for ourselves so that we could focus on the things that we were passionate about. And so initially we were like, okay, in 10 years, we'll be able to save up enough money to buy the next place around here because everything is really expensive. And I remember reading this article about this woman who lived somewhere in the South. It was not as high cost of living as where I was living, and she was able to grow a portfolio. And I was like, well, that's great if you live in an area where things are more reasonably priced.
Right.
And it was an aha moment for me where I was like, well, I guess, like, why can't I buy something in a cheaper area, like in another state?
Yeah.
And that opened up out of state investing for me and for my husband. And so we started buying properties in Tennessee. And that was our main focus, out of state investing, long-term rentals. So your traditional like year-long lease type thing. And we bought a number of properties between 2018 and when the world shut down in 2020. And actually in 2020, we had a property under contract. I think it was like 125 units. And we were forging ahead with these large multifamily properties that we were trying to purchase using funding from other investors. And when the world shut down, I was 4 months pregnant. We had this property under contract and we were like, what are we going to do? And that was a big moment. It really kind of changed the trajectory of the next few years up until today. So we ended up backing out of that deal because during the due diligence period, we found that they had misrepresented the vacancy rate. I had taken a step back from, I was working as a real estate agent at the time. And because I was going to be working with the public and I was pregnant and we had no idea what the heck was going on, we decided I would take a step back. My husband was working remotely and we would figure it out. And so during 2020, I took the time to just renovate while very pregnant, renovate our entire house hack. And when 2021 happened, we turned the clock. My daughter was here and we were like, we need to figure out what we're doing. We've taken a year to kind of sit back on our heels and take in everything that's going on, but we can't let this hold us back anymore. And so what we decided is we're going to turn over our entire original portfolio. We're going to sell our house hack. We're going to sell our properties in Tennessee. And we are going to take that and we are going to scale up into short-term rental properties at a distance. Okay. And so that's what we did. So So we purchased short-term rentals in Tennessee and Texas. We sold our house hack. We moved into a new house hack. And then in August, my husband retired and now we are doing all of this full time. So it's been a crazy almost 5 years now.
Wow. It sounds like it. Wow.
Yeah.
Something it's kind of funny to me. 2020, it was a year and it was a lot going on. It was chaotic, but realistically, in a lot of areas, it brought opportunity because 2020 is when we started investing in certain things. And we officially have like a large down payment for our home. We're still renting $2,000 a month. Absolutely ridiculous. But we moved in around that time, kind of out of convenience. Long story short, the people who owned the house we had been renting for about 4 years, we were going to buy. And they were like, a month before, our lease was up, they were like, yeah, we're actually not going to sell. So so you got like a month.
That's
and we're
so
like,
tough. That's
so
crazy.
Luckily I knew a realtor over here and she was like, hey, I got something for you, 20 houses down the same street. And I was like, yes.
Amazing. Yes, absolutely. I'll take it.
Yeah. Like I didn't want to relocate my kids again. We've been here for 4 years already, but it's crazy because it was such a chaotic year, but it brought a lot of opportunity. I mean, if you think of, just the stipends we got and all these kinds of things, while yes, we had to pay it back because we knew we would, but
sure,
if you were working or, even not, because certain things happened with us because of where we worked at the time, that I had to quit my job and stay home with my kindergartner who was kindergartening on the computer. And I was in college. So it's like so chaotic. But, I'm home now. Let me start this business. Let me put these books out, things like this. And with my fiance, you know what, I've got this going on. Let me start investing. It was really kind of like a wake up in certain way. For certain people, it was really bad because
yes, of course,
maybe didn't have access to or education or knowledge to start certain opportunities. You have to have a level of financial intelligence. And even I wouldn't have had that financial intelligence 5 years ago to do the things that I did in 2020.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree. I feel like we all had to kind of look for the silver lining in a I don't even know, crazy time. And that's absolutely what kind of led me to really focus in on my social channels. So had reconnected with an old friend from college, and she invests in real estate as well, and we would talk all the time about our adventures in real estate and all of this stuff. And so prior to the pandemic, I was at networking events like 5 nights a week. It was insane.
Oh,
It was
wow.
way too much. And I would go to these networking events, and I would very often be the only woman in the room.
Wow.
And that was shocking to me. And also just unacceptable. I was like, we need more women in the room at the table. Like, how do we do this? And so that was one of the things I started focusing on in 2020. My friend and I, we started a podcast that was focused on women, entrepreneurship and investing in yourself and all of that. And then I started to lean into my channels and talk a lot about how financial education for women is important, because for a lot of reasons, but one of the big reasons is that when women are financially successful, families and in turn communities are more successful. Women are more philanthropic with their money. They tend to give back to their community at every single income level more than men. And so I find that being able to provide just information that maybe someone may not have known about before or had access to before is so important in helping them to find whatever financial freedom means to them, whether that means I want to leave my 9-to-5 job, or that means I want to be work optional in case I get laid off, or it means like I just want to take an extra vacation a year, or like be able to buy like an extra pair of shoes. I don't know, whatever it means to you, it means something different to everyone, but we all deserve to have the information to be able to access those things.
Right. And it's important to acknowledge that not everybody has a certain level of financial literacy, right? Mm-hmm. Not everybody was taught certain things growing up for whatever reason. However, it's something that my fiance and I talk about a lot, especially, having kids different ages. I have 2 young adults. One, he's getting better. The other one, she saves. She's a diligent saver. During the holidays, she's going to put extra money back to buy people gifts and things like that. Mm-hmm. She's not going to spend crazy and then being broke. She's saving money for her car. Like, she's doing the things, mm-hmm. And part of it is me as a parent. When my son was growing up, I wasn't teaching him the right stuff because I didn't know the right stuff.
Yeah, of course.
With my daughter, I had her at 18. I had a little bit more time to teach her stuff, but I didn't necessarily start off teaching her the best. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really until our 7-year-old that we started investing for his, financially putting back money for his future and things like that. And it's because, I tell my oldest kids, I'm like, I'm sorry I didn't do that for you. Like they don't care. They don't hold it against me, but it's like, man, like as a parent, and when you're having a child at 14 and 18, you're not thinking financial literacy. But as a parent, even in your 20s and 30s, sometimes if you don't know better and you haven't taught better, but
absolutely. You don't know what you don't know. Like that's just the thing. Like, and there's absolutely no shame in that. Like you cannot know the things that you don't know. Right. And so it's all about just like, you recognized, well, I don't know. And so you took mm-hmm. that and you went and you learned, and you will continue to learn. And I think one of the important things to know, especially when it comes to finances, really anything in life, you've never reached the optimal I know everything point. We are always learning and growing.
Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely. Because the moment that you stop, that you're like, you know what? I'm perfect. I have learned all of the things that I can learn. I will not grow. I will not change. You have stopped living. Like you need to continue to grow, and you need to continue to learn, because things are changing all the time. That I just think it's really important.
Yeah. One thing I want to make sure and express is that to the listeners, that there's no judgment. Mm-mm. Like you said, you don't know what you don't know. There's no mm-hmm. judgment. And however, as adults, it is kind of our responsibility to educate ourselves. And there's so much information. And I'm glad mm-hmm. that we are able to be kind of an addition to the information available out there, because now they might know a little bit more.
Exactly.
And when you know better, you can do better.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's talk about your content creation and
Mhm.
how, which it ties together very, very smoothly. Tell me how that came about and kind of a little bit about how you run that.
Yeah. So initially, when I started focusing on content creation, it was just kind of something I was interested in. I was looking for a creative outlet, honestly, during 2020, and I started focusing on mainly, lifestyle, beauty, mom, like that whole thing, and it was really
Hmm.
fun. But I found there was a whole part of what I was doing, like kind of the underlying thing that I'm always doing, which is the real estate stuff, wasn't present at all in my content. Um, and I polled my audience and I was like, what do you want to hear about? Like, do you care about my real estate stuff? Do you want me to show you like fashion and beauty and mom stuff? Because I can do that too. That also is a part of who I am.
Yeah.
And my audience kind of resoundingly told me that they wanted to hear about my real estate journey. And so I was like, all right, well, you get what you asked for. So I focus on a few things with my content, and I do it all myself. I don't have anyone helping me right now. My husband, since he's left his job, he does help me. He does a lot of my like PR stuff, which is fantastic. He also does my B-roll and whatnot, so I'm very very happy with all of that. And he's a great photographer, so that is very helpful.
That's a
But
bonus.
it's a bonus. So mainly what I focus on is creating content that is educational and valuable that people can turn into actionable steps. I focus mainly my content on how to get started because I think there's a lot of people who are at that point. I
Yeah.
don't really go into the what to do after you start. I do touch on it, but I
Mhm.
want to make sure that people have the foundation because sometimes it takes a long time to just build that foundation before you
Yes.
actually take action.
Yeah.
And I am happy to provide what happens after you build that foundation, but I want to make sure that you have a solid one before you get started. So I work with clients. I do coaching for them and I'll take them through, like where are we right now? Where are we trying to get to? And how are we going to get you there? And so that is a focus. So I work with clients. I have a boot camp. And then I also work with brands. So I work with brands who align with my content. So typically that would be finance or real estate focused brands. But there's also, kind of more quote unquote fun brands who fall into the lifestyle category. I'm huge into coffee, huge into wine. So anytime I get the opportunity to work with brands who, like brands I'm already using in my everyday life, that is ideal
Yeah.
for me because
That
I,
makes
you know, I want
absolute
to,
sense.
I want to show my audience like this is something that I really love. Like,
Right.
my Yeti mug, like Yeti, sponsor me. That would be great because I use you every day and it's like my favorite thing. So I kind of that kind of was all really accidental.
Uh,
Again, I feel like I kind of keep falling into these accidental things that are really awesome and I really love them. And I think it's when you kind of are following your passions and staying true to what your interests are that you kind of quote unquote, fall into things that are more aligned with what you want. I think one of the big things in 2020 that was an aha moment for me after having my daughter was my big why is to have the time and financial freedom to spend with my daughter and my husband doing the things that we're passionate about, whether that's starting a
yeah.
business or like literally sitting on the couch and watching TV or on a Tuesday going and having a picnic in the park. Like I want to be able to have the control and the time power to do those things that I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something for me that's super important to before my fiance and I moved in together, I was a single mom for a while. And even when I wasn't technically a single mom, I kind of still was because the partner I had, uh,
Yeah.
you know, but that's something that became super important to me. Realistically, when COVID happened and, kids had to go remote, like I said, my son was in kindergarten.
Yeah.
So I was working this job. I was working at a restaurant. Now, mind you, at this point, I already had one degree. Um, So, and I was planning on going into ministry, um, but well, everything shut down and certain things, and I shifted my focus from
Hmm.
ministry for a couple of reasons. But I had this plan, so I was like, okay, I've
Yeah.
already finished this one degree. I was in college for psychology, and so I had big plan, to go out in the world and work and keep doing the thing that I was doing, which work
Hmm.
5 to 6 days a week and be gone and not, be
Yeah.
home with the kids all the time and still maintain a household. I like things to be as put together and clean as they can, specifically the
Yeah.
downstairs. You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
I don't want to, like, if I gotta, if my room's a little out of sorts, it's not as big, but I need the bathrooms and the downstairs, I need those
Yeah.
things clean. And when
Yes.
I'm working 5, 6 days a week and the kids are at school and then they come home and I'm at work and, whatnot, like it's just a lot. I'm
Yes.
not raising my kids. My kids are raising my kids because at one point I'd be at
Yeah.
work and my I don't know what, probably 15, 16-year-old at the time was helping out with the baby or watching his little sisters while I finished working and all this.
Yep.
And it was just chaos. And it wasn't really me raising my
Absolutely.
kids. So when kind of COVID happened and things fell into a certain way, and I started a business and I wrote books because I was home and I was like, I
Hmm.
don't want to go back to always
No.
being gone.
Yes.
It was, and I know even with yours being, pretty little, I can imagine for you, this is your first child
Yeah.
and, this marriage and this new venture. It's like, I want to do this. I don't want to not raise my kids. And
Hmm.
obviously nothing against to women who work outside of the home.
Of course.
Because some points of this journey too would be easier if I just went and got a job and saved up all this money to put into the businesses. you
Yes.
Then I have to like
Same.
then spend all my other time running and getting
Hmm.
off the ground and not raising
Hmm.
my kids. It's just it would be easier in some aspects,
Yeah,
but
the grass is always greener,
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
whatever you are not doing, you're like, "Oh, I wish I was doing that." Like I think about
right.
now, so for the last 2 years, what we kind of did, my husband and I, is he was working his W-2 job remotely. I was pretty almost 100% with my daughter, but I was doing my businesses and our business on the side, when she was napping and after she went down to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents would take my daughter a couple days a week, and that was really helpful.
Yeah,
And then when he left his job, it was a moment that he felt like he had missed out on the last 2 years with my daughter.
yeah.
And so we kind of swapped. So he now is with my daughter on the days that she's not with my parents,
Okay,
and I'm working. And then I have her on Friday and he gets an extra day to work. So we work together
okay.
3 days a week. He has her 2 days a week and I have her one day. And, you know, when I first transitioned to that schedule, I was like, now I feel like I'm missing her. Like I would
Yeah,
like one more day.
yeah.
And I think part of the challenge for us is because of just the way that things are, we haven't been able to get her into daycare. We are on like a million waiting lists, but the waiting lists are so long. So we've been in this weird, really weird holding pattern where we don't have a lot of options when it comes to what we do with my daughter. And so
Gotcha.
she goes to my parents a couple days a week, and then my husband and I kind of just split it up the best way that we can. And
Yeah,
when we can eventually get her into daycare, when we can finally get off a wait list, I think our lives will look a lot different, and we're going to have to figure out what
yeah.
that looks like. I'm a little bit nervous about the transition to daycare. That seems like a lot of time away from my daughter, but
I
it'll be good
know.
for her. Lots of socialization. But yeah, there's the grass is always greener. I wouldn't say I was miserable when I was with, my daughter for those 2 years, but I was dealing with postpartum depression and postpartum
Mm,
anxiety for the first year and a half. And so, that's not a great time. and
yeah,
and then when I
yeah.
finally was able to, move beyond that, I did start to enjoy her and our time more. But there's just seasons of life, and everything in every moment is going to be good, bad, and, ugly, whatever. And you just
Absolutely.
kind of have
Yeah.
to roll with it. That's
Yeah.
all you can do.
Like it's gonna happen regardless.
Yeah.
Either enjoy it or work through it or, suffer through it. I can.
Yeah, just do the best you can. I mean, we're all just doing the best we can. That's at the
That
end of the
is,
day.
ooh, yeah.
Yeah, we're just doing the best that we can. But it helps if your financial well-being is in a good place. So that's like one
Yeah,
less thing that you have to stress about,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I give a lot of props to my partner too, because I have always been kind of, okay, I focus on the moment, what bills do I have to pay this month? And I literally just do, because like I said, it was just me for a while.
Yeah.
And before that, we didn't have the best things sorted out. Uh,
Yeah.
so me, and even when I did have a partner before, after my divorce and everything like that, we, I took care of most of the finances. So it was like, it wasn't hard when I cut that person loose to just pick up
Mm-hmm.
everything because I was already pretty much doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
I am used to this month to month mindset. That's kind of how I was raised, and that's just what I did. And he really is the opposite. Although his childhood financially was very similar to mine. His mom was
Mm-hmm.
sick for a really long time. And it was just her. He started working and providing for the household very young. So
Mm-hmm.
we've both had that experience of having to take care of things. But I have to give him a lot of props because he started learning about investing. And this was all 2020. We were like, we just don't want to struggle anymore. Like we've
Yeah.
got five
Yeah.
children. We have us, we have, the kids are going to eventually grow up and move out and do their thing. And what do we want to be doing?
Yeah.
We do have interest in real estate. Um, if I had it my way, I would have just kind of like land, and this
Mm-hmm.
would be our main house, and each kid would just have a house on my land,
Love it.
because why not just buy a
Yeah.
lot, have six houses on it,
Mm-hmm.
seven, my mom can have a house on there too, why not?
Yeah,
I do my
absolutely.
dream.
100%. But
But
I completely agree. Like you just said, like the month to month mindset versus like the long-term mindset. So when my husband definitely had more of like a financial literate upbringing than I
okay.
did. I um my parents, they just didn't, and so then that passes on, like they don't, and so then I don't, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't really know anything about saving. I didn't really know anything about anything having to do with finances, and so I was very
Yeah.
fortunate that my husband had more knowledge than I did, not
Yeah.
necessarily in investing. He knew how to like budget, how to save, but nothing about how to grow. And so something that I've heard someone say, and I think it's really important, and it sometimes can be a little jarring to hear, but you can't budget your way out of poverty. If you're not making enough
Mm,
money, you're not making enough money. That's just as
that's a
simple
profound
as this.
statement though. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it can be kind of hard to hear, I think, sometimes,
Yeah.
but I think the power in just knowing that, like, because I think sometimes people are
Yeah.
like, I'm budgeting, I'm doing it, why isn't it working? And the reason it's not working is because you just there needs to be more money. And so the
Yeah.
question is like, how do I get it? Like, how do I get the more money? And
Yeah.
so working a bunch of jobs and having no time to give back to your family obviously is not the ideal answer to that. And
Right.
so like, what are the small ways that you can start to add streams of income, that you can start to invest in your future? And so it's just knowing about some of those smaller things that you can be doing. I personally don't invest in the stock market. I think people who do, amazing, good for you, get it. I just don't know what I'm doing. And so when I don't feel comfortable with what I'm doing, I'm not going to just do it. And instead I focus on real assets, because at the end of the day, I have an asset. If it doesn't work out, I sell it and I still make money. So
right.
that is kind of my mindset. And I definitely, that's a block for me. And knowing where your blocks are, like where your money blocks are very, very important. If you believe that you can't make more money, then you probably won't be able to make more money, because that's a money block. Like it is a block, whatever your block is. So like taking a step back from yourself and looking at your limiting beliefs wherever they are is really important. But there are a variety of ways to start building up money when you don't have money. I talk a lot about this on my channels, like how to get started in real estate with zero money, with zero savings. And there's a few ways that you can do it. So I focus on short-term rental properties. So think like Airbnb, VRBO. So a great way to start learning and start exposing yourself to that when you don't have any money is, one, networking. So there are a million networking events that are being held in your city or your like adjacent city. All you have to do is go on Meetup, which is free. All these networking events are free. They're not like, you don't have to pay for them. And you just have to search real estate investing and find the nearest meetup to you. And you're going to go and you're just going to talk to people. What are other people around you doing? Everyone always says, your network is your net worth. And when you surround yourself with people who are doing bigger things than you're doing, it expands your mindset. You're like, holy moly, if that person can do it, why can't I do it?
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So go to those networking events, talk to those people, see what people are doing. What's their story? How did they get there? How did they do what they're doing now? Do you have more time than you have money? Can you help that person? Do they need a boots on the ground person in X location to help them with something? And then you can take a percentage of the project that they're working on. So that's an option.
Okay.
Then another thing to think about is, how can I co-host for people on Airbnb? This is a whole like other subset of a way to build income. So basically,
because I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. So a lot of people who own short-term rental properties and they put them on Airbnb, they self-manage them, but maybe they don't want to, or maybe they have limited time. And so they want someone who can communicate with the guests. Okay. Perfect. You can do that. And there's plenty of ways that you can find people who need a co-host. One, these networking events, they're a great way to meet people who need help. How can I help people? Go into these events thinking like, how can I help you? Not how can you help me? Because you're going to get way more from it when you do that. And then there's Facebook groups for people who have Airbnbs and who are looking for co-hosts, and they'll post and be like, hey, I need a co-host. Really simple. Like, these are free ways to find people who need help. Another method that you can use to get into real estate investing, into short-term rentals specifically with no money, is something called rental arbitrage. So rental arbitrage is when you rent an apartment, like a long-term lease, from a landlord. And then you, with the approval of the landlord, you sublet that property on Airbnb. And so what you can do is you can get an interest-free credit card for 24 months, finance the furniture, and use all of the cash flow from the Airbnb to pay off that credit card before you start putting the money in your own account. Pay it off. So you've paid off the furniture. It's usually between $5,000 and $10,000, and you should be able to get at least one or two credit cards to help you pay for that, and pay that off. And now you're cash flowing on this property, and this landlord is very happy because they don't have to worry about getting their rent every month because you're cash flowing way on top of that. So those are 3 ways that you could start investing in real estate right now with absolutely no money.
I'm over here taking notes because that is fabulous information. Seriously. What is you guys's like 5-year goal with this business? Do you plan to expand it? And, because I know you were saying at one point you were buying these certain things and you kind of rebranded, and now you're doing these things. What is kind of your 5-year goal or plan for the business?
Yeah. So something that I always say that sometimes like gives people, they're like, huh, what do you mean? So in my mind, everything is real estate.
Mhm.
The grocery store is real estate. The
Mhm.
laundromat is real estate. The restaurant you love is real estate. It's all real estate at the end of the
Mhm.
day. So so what my husband and I do, we treat our lives a little bit like a business in and of itself. So we have an annual meeting every year. We have quarterly meetings where we review our goals. And so we set our goals out 10 years ahead of time. And so we're actually at 7 years with this goal, but my husband and I really want to start a vineyard. That is our really big goal.
Ooh, okay.
We're about 7 years out from it now, so we're very excited. We're getting closer. It's no longer the 10 year, it's the 7
Right.
now.
It's almost five, so
Almost, yeah, exactly. So basically, what we like to do is we blue sky our goals. We plan out, far in advance, usually 10 years, and then we map that back over 7 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 1 month. So I know exactly what I need to be doing every single month to hit my 10-year goal.
Okay.
Because a 10-year goal is like, okay, I want to start a vineyard. Like, what the heck does that even mean? Like, that is a humongous, overwhelming goal, right? Like, where do I even start?
Yeah.
But you start by chunking down that goal and making it attainable. What we're doing right now is, so we bought our properties. We will now continue to accumulate short-term rentals that will allow us to purchase long-term rentals so we can diversify. We plan on then using like basically all of the cash flow that we're making from these properties then allows us to buy more properties, which then funds the future dreams. Right. So buy more short-term rentals, buy more long-term rentals. The following years, buy hotels, buy glamp grounds, and then buy land, build the vineyard, plant the vines, build dream house, all that good stuff. And so those are like the bigger things to do, right? To expand the portfolio. But then there's the smaller things that you have to do. And that includes us like taking the W set, which is, so instead of going and becoming a sommelier, you take a double W set and you learn more about wine. It's basically just a wine course.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then you start you start joining Facebook groups with wine distributors and you start talking to them. And then you start networking with local businesses who might be able to bring different things to your vineyard, like, oh, cheeses, so that would be great. Like, how do I build those relationships? So you have to do there's like all these smaller things that help to bolster up these like really big things that allow the goals to move forward. And so we always are focused on how do I make what I'm doing right now effective so that then in turn can support what I'm going to be doing in 10 years and like who I imagine I'll be in 10 years. So long answer to your question, those are our goals. That's the plan.
No, but I love it though, because it's goal oriented and it is important. I mean, if I knew 5 years ago what I knew now, I'd be in a much different place probably. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
4 or 5 years, 10 years, 7 years, 1 month, it is important to have goals. It's certain things that if you really want to be successful, you got to start now planning for that 5-year mark because and then life happens in between, so we can plan all we want, but we got to leave room for life. So we need years sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, so, and this is the analogy that I like to use is like, okay, if I'm going to a dinner party at a friend's house, right? I don't know how to get there. Then how am I supposed to get to this dinner party? I need a plan, a map to get there, right? A roadmap to get to their house. And you know what? I'm probably going to hit some road work along the way and maybe there's a detour, but I'm not going to hit that roadblock or that detour. And I'm going to say, well, I guess I'm not going to the dinner party. I'm just going to go home.
Right. You're
going to find an alternate route. You're going to figure out how to go around that detour, or maybe there's a speed bump. So you have to go like a little bit slower so you can get over that speed bump more effectively. Like, treat your life and your goals like you're going to your friend's dinner party. How am I going to get there? What does my road map look like? And if I hit some roadblocks and detours and speed bumps along the way, it's okay. It might slow me down for a second, but I'm still going to get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So let everybody know where they can find you, where they can go to watch you, to learn your tips, your tricks, Instagram, TikTok, all
Yeah.
the things.
So I am on all the socials. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, even,
Oh, nice.
all at Taylor Coleman-Adams. Make it really simple. It's the same everywhere except for Twitter because it wouldn't let me put enough letters there, but it's fine. It's okay. I don't really do anything on Twitter. So just follow me on the other places.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here with us today, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Absolutely. If anyone wants to chime in, or if anybody has questions they want us to answer or topics to discuss, you can leave that on the Facebook page. Visit www.philolity.net. That's FALOLITY, where you can purchase your own copy of Surviving Mom Brain and Dad Brain workbooks, as well as my autobiography.
Adios, mi amigos.